let you know when we are live on YouTube.
Yep, we're live.
Yeah, it just said your audience will see it in a moment. Get ready.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll go on to the Periscope now and do that.
Okay.
I'll go on to. Oops, I'm gonna turn that down right now.
I see we got a couple people here in the YouTube feed and on Shindig here. We're just getting set up real quick. Should be going live in about 60 seconds here. We'll talk about what we're doing today and what video clips we're breaking down today and all that kind of stuff. I'm feeling a little bit sick this morning, so I apologize for that.
All right. Yep. I think we could probably at least kind of start, but we'll let Periscope roll in. I'm gonna make sure I tweet stuff. Make sure I get it retweet onto my feed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We are live on Periscope now, so we should probably talk about sports.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So while you're finishing that up, I'll do the little introduction thing right here. So welcome in, as always, guys, to the About the Labor pregame show. For the next 45 minutes to an hour, we'll be talking about the Vikings-Packers matchup here, breaking down some film clips on guys like Aaron Rodgers, what Harrison Smith did for the Vikings last week, and then we'll talk a little bit about a couple things that have been floating around the Twitterverse lately. You saw Brett Coleman's video on the offensive line technique that the Green Bay Packers teach. We'll talk a little bit about that and show how the Vikings have been able to beat that, as Brett Coleman did in his video. We'll talk a little bit about kind of that masterpiece that he put together. And then, we'll get some other stuff to talk about. Obviously, if you guys haven't been awake or you're just getting up, Adam Schefter talked about earlier this morning that it is official that Teddy Bridgewater is likely to come off of the PUP next week. This is something that we kind of all expected, I think. Something that a lot of us kind of foresaw and had heard, caught wind of, but it's official, it sounds like now. So, of course, we'll probably have to throw some Teddy into the show at some point here, but this is going to be largely a film review show. We're going to have Austin Belial from Vikings Territory joining us on here as well, and also Zach Jacobson from Cheesehead TV. So it should be a pretty fun episode. Hope you guys are excited as we are. And, so let's start here. While people are filtering in with inactives, the injury report, all that kind of stuff, Drew. What do you got for me?
Yeah, we have the Packers are going to be missing some key. Well, both teams are missing key players. Let me double check on that list here. But the Packers are missing both of their starting corners, Kevin King and Devon House, both of their starting outside cornerbacks. Morgan Burnett is out again. He's been struggling. I believe it's a hamstring or something, but he's arguably their best secondary player at this point, and he's out. Joe Thomas, a pass rusher at outside linebacker, he's out. Ahmad Brooks is out, and then Adam Pankey and Montravius Adams are their inactives. So they are missing a lot in the secondary. Those first three names there, King, House, and Burnett, are going to derail an already depleted Green Bay Packers secondary. And then for the Vikings, obviously Sam Bradford's out, Stephon Diggs is out, Anderson Dejo is out. He was questionable coming into today. He's going to be out. That could be a problem for the Vikings. Nick Easton also out at starting left guard. Aviante Collins, Tayshaun Bauer, and Rodney Adams are your other inactives. So any reactions initially here for you, BJ?
The obvious reaction, I think you kind of had the same reaction I did amidst bringing out that injury report, is Anderson Dejo being out for the Vikings is a bigger problem than it sounds like. I know that a lot of the people that listen to our show and, send us thoughts and whatnot are not huge fans of Anderson Dejo, largely because of him being sort of an average type player, right? He doesn't do anything incredibly well, and everyone has always been wanting to get, someone that can kind of complement Harrison Smith better. But him being out, and we've talked about this in the last couple of shows specifically because he's been having such a good run as of late, him being out puts the Vikings at a disadvantage over the top, which is nervous. It makes me nervous simply because without that type of consistency, without that type of awareness that he shows, just the knowledge of the playbook and the defensive scheme, you don't really know what you're going to get with guys like, whether it's Anthony Harris, Jaron Curse. I guess we're not sure who it's going to be just yet. It might be Terrence Newman at times as well. But the point being here is you don't have that continuity. You don't have that, consistency, and that, I feel very comfortable with Anderson Dejo back there. He's been essentially lights out since he allowed Andre Holmes to beat him deep against the Oakland Raiders, whatever that was. I think 2 years ago,
2015, I believe. That was kind of the turning point in his career. I feel like
it really was.
It was embarrassing, and it kind of like woke him up, sort of. And he's been, very reliable since then.
I would agree, absolutely. So that injury is big to me. The other one that's the obvious ones that stand out here for the Packers too is that they're, you've got so many key defensive players, and this is something we talked about in the most recent podcast, is that all these guys are contributors for this football team. Morgan Burnett especially. I've heard a lot of people compare Morgan Burnett's role, the way he's used, to Harrison Smith, and that he's kind of just a wrecking ball. And does a lot of stuff inside the box. He can also cover you deep. He's kind of a Harrison Smith light. So he's a very important piece of that defense, and he's going to be out today too. So there's a lot of key players that are missing from this very important matchup, and that's kind of, it's going to make coaching that much more important, and we'll see how the backup and reserve level players are able to kind of step up into this moment here.
Yeah, it looks like Anthony Harris, from what I've seen. I think Courtney Cronin from ESPN.com reported that it'll be Anthony Harris filling in there. So, not much of a run support player, which could be a problem. I think we'll see Harrison Smith a lot more in the box than we usually do. He kind of, can do both ways, play center field and play in the box. But I would assume Smith will be in the box a lot more often than usual, with Harris kind of being more of that rangy kind of center field type of safety. But the other takeaway here from the inactives, I think, is the Packers getting David Bakhtiari back. So that matchup on the outside there between Everson Griffin and David Bakhtiari, trying to get after Aaron Rodgers, is going to be a fun one to watch. For those that didn't see the Brett Coleman video, we'll discuss that later in the show, but the Packers employ a different technique with their pass protection, and it's kind of why this whole idea of the Packers getting away with holds has become an issue. They have it's called the hug technique, where they, instead of giving the first jab, they wait for the defensive line to provide that first move, and then they kind of hug their shoulder pads, and in that way render the defense almost useless in a way. So we'll talk about that later and kind of see how the Vikings could get around that. But Bakhtiari back is huge for Aaron Rodgers in that passing game, because was it Lane Taylor that was in there? He was doing okay, but it's a very different ball game going up against one of the best pass rushers in the game.
Absolutely. So let's jump into some of this film here. We'll finish up with that pass rushing technique stuff. Let's start for now with let's see here. We've got, what do you want to start with here, Drew? We got Aaron Jones, we got Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. We got Jerick McKinnon, Harrison Smith. You want to start Packers or Vikings here?
Let's start Packers here. We'll start with some Rodgers stuff, because I feel like
that's. Start Rodgers? Okay.
Yeah, we'll get that out. We'll for sure get that in, and then
Okay, so we'll start with this one. This is the game winner from last week. And this is something that we talk about on the show quite a bit here. Just simply when Aaron Rodgers is able to throw that back shoulder fade, there's not a whole lot you can do. It's completely technique-based. I believe Skip Bayless actually said something about this play, and the cornerback, I'm trying to remember who it was, the cornerback from Michigan last year as a rookie, actually chirped back at Skip Bayless talking about how this isn't a size issue, this is a technique issue. And what I mean by technique issue here is simply when you throw the ball in this place, it's almost impossible to stop. So if you missed this play last week, this is the game-winning touchdown that Devontae Adams had from Aaron Rodgers here. I'm not sure why the video is being a little choppy right now, but so basically Rodgers is going to just throw, like, I don't know, man. There's not a whole lot. You watch this tape, and there's not a whole lot to really break down, because simply Devontae Adams is going to get separation off the line of scrimmage right here, and he's going to create a little window, and literally this is what Rodgers does so well, right? This is why he's arguably the best quarterback in the game right now, is he just simply finds that tight window and puts it in there, and basically all Devontae Adams has to do is do the same job that he's been doing his entire career, and that's just catch the football, because there's so much separation created by the throw on that play by Rodgers that it's very hard to defend. This has been something that's been hurting the Vikings for years.
Right. I mean, the back shoulder throw, when timed perfectly, is literally unstoppable. Xavier Rhodes won't stop it. Patrick Pearson won't stop it. Darrelle Revis in his prime won't stop it. It's just one of those things that if a quarterback can time it perfectly with his receiver, it's an unstoppable play, and it's one of the toughest things to do too for a quarterback and receiver to time that right. So the fact that Aaron Rodgers has been so successful with that pass, I guess it goes to show. I don't want to go on another rant about how great Rodgers is, but this throw is very difficult to master, and he has done it. And I mean, what is the Packers DB supposed to do there? Because the idea is to get the ball there before the DB can get his head turned around to make a play on it, and it's tough to do because if you do turn your head too early, you lose the receiver and you get burned. So the DB is kind of in a catch-22 there, and if the timing's perfect, it's virtually unstoppable. Yeah, we saw last year Trey Waynes actually pick off a pass on a very similar route in that Vikings Week 2 win. That Trey Waynes interception, the game-breaking interception that he made, it's on a very similar play to this one right here, except for he jumped the route. He took a gamble and it paid off for Waynes. And that's kind of the difference here between Jordan Lewis. That's the cornerback on this play, by the way, that gets beaten. That's the difference here is that Waynes, instinctually, he was able to jump the route about right here, where at this point you can see Jordan Lewis doesn't have his head turned around, and that's going to be a touchdown. So that's the type of thing that Aaron Rodgers is always going to bring, and that's just critical accuracy and just above and beyond talent. Now, this is the most important part of his game, and his ability to move just simply to get in space outside the pocket and then extend the play. This clip right here is a 7-second long clip, right? So just think about that. 7 seconds here. He's going to create some time here with the space with his feet as you see. I think it's DeMarcus Lawrence right there. He's going to cross over the middle and he's going to create space with his feet here, and he's going to make just a ridiculous throw to Martellus Bennett, who makes a ridiculous catch in double coverage. So, the simple takeaway here is that Rodgers is magic, right? This is a completely absurd throw. Nobody should be able to make this throw, but he's able to be critically accurate downfield while rolling out of the pocket, and that's something that he always burns you with, whether that's on a play where he gets a free play, as we've seen him do, against Everson Griffin, Brian Robinson in the past, where they jump off sides, and he creates time and separation, allows his receivers to get open downfield, and basically just does stuff like this. And this is the type of thing where you can't defend for 7 seconds in coverage. When he creates this much time, it's just good luck. And then on top of that, he's so critically accurate that even when you still have a tight window, despite them kind of playing like a fire drill type thing here where Rodgers is moving out of the pocket and the play breaks down and they start running just to get open in space, the coverage is still pretty good here. It's just that Martellus Bennett and Rodgers combine to make an excellent play. And that's, again, if you can slow down Rodgers a little bit, the best way to do that is to keep him in the pocket, because I think Drew said this in the last podcast, is that he might actually just be better outside the pocket. Right. It sure seems like it sometimes. Well, I want to slow this down to, so I'm going to try and do this right here. But watch DeMarcus Lawrence. He dips in just for a millisecond. He dips inward and kind of tries to collapse and beat his guy inside. And as soon as Rodgers sees that, he bounces outside. I mean, so right here, he's starting to move inside. Rodgers sees it, and he's outside. He's moving. It's over. Right? I mean, look how fast Rodgers can recognize that, get out of the pocket, and create a throwing lane for himself, which, by the way, that's not even really a throwing lane. That's an absurd throw to make. So the Vikings have to stay disciplined. I think, how did we say this? Aggressively disciplined. Is that how we put it on one of the podcasts this week? Where when you do get
you have to find the balance between discipline and aggressiveness somewhere in there.
There's going to be a few times in the game where you can actually get a shot at Aaron Rodgers and you can actually make that sack. And if you miss, more than likely it's going to bite you in the butt pretty bad. So when you get that chance, when you have the opportunity, let's say you beat your, Everson Griffin, Brian Robinson, Daniel Hunter, whoever it is, can really put a spin move or whatever it is on the offensive line. You really have to make sure that opportunity counts, because he will definitely make you pay if you somehow would miss on that. So. And I'll also note here before we move on to the next clip, those watching on Periscope and those watching on YouTube, if you want to join the Shindig room right now, I believe the link is out on the Vikings ATL Pod Twitter account. You can join, pose us questions, pose thoughts, and if you have a working camera, you can also come on to the show and give us your thoughts there too. So we invite everybody to come in here where you can have kind of an enhanced experience of the show. But yeah, we can move on now.
Okay. All right. So before we get Zach Jacobson in here to talk about the Packers, let's talk about their new running back before he gets in here, and we'll have him talk about him as well. So obviously Aaron Rodgers is the primary threat. I don't think anyone's going to argue with me on that. But Aaron Jones, UTEP running back, small dude. This is a guy that actually was on the Vikings engagement list this past March. The team brought him in for workouts. So this is a guy that the Vikings are actually fairly familiar with, and they're aware of, the talent that he brings to the table. So let's take a look at this clip here. This is last week against the Cowboys when he made his debut. This is, I believe this is just a 13-yard run, but this shows off a lot of his skill set, right? So he's going to take the handoff here. He's going to basically make one cut right here. Now he's got the opportunity to go one-on-one in space with a guy, a defensive player. And this is something that as a good running back is going to make the first guy miss, right? That's the goal, to create broken tackles and create, get yourself into the open field. That's something that Aaron Jones does really well right here. And he does it literally just with speed. He just basically takes one cut and gets past him here, sheds the tackle and makes another hard cut, cuts on a dime and looks upfield here. And if this block is made, if he basically doesn't hesitate right there and that block to the left side to steal the edge is made, that might be 6 points. But instead, it's a 13-yard run. But you can see the balance, the vision, the explosiveness out of his cuts, the stuff that Aaron Jones brings. If he's able to get himself into space, he could be a very dangerous runner and as productive possibly as Ty Montgomery was last year for the Packers, if not more so.
Right. And, I mean, they're both active today. Montgomery is back. So that will be an interesting dynamic between those two, because we talked so much last week about the Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen duo, and while these guys I don't think their skill sets are as different as those two guys, I think they're both very effective players. And did you already give the shout out to Adam Warwes? Because
I did on the last podcast for sure.
Okay, because we're going to do this every single time we talk about Aaron Jones, because he from the get-go, from draft season, talked about Aaron Jones and how he was going to be a really good player. And I kind of brush it off like, whatever, dude, you're just picking a random running back and saying these things to be a draft hot take expert. But Aaron Jones is a really, really good player, and he showed it last week. I think he went over 100 yards against Dallas. So between he and Montgomery, I don't know how much Montgomery will be limited, if at all. But it's not like, Jones is a scrub, and when Montgomery is pulled out of the game, there's going to be, the Vikings defense can relax. It'll be the same type of performance and production there. And this Vikings rushing defense, which has been pretty good all season, has another challenge this week for sure.
Absolutely. So let's get Zach on here, Drew. While you're getting him set up, I'll run through the sponsor note from Black Stack. As always here, Black Stack Brewing. I'm currently enjoying a nice New England IPA. It's absolutely fantastic stuff. I'm now drinking. Personally, I've been drinking this specific IPA for the last couple of weeks here, and I'm a big fan of it. It's one of their new concoctions, I guess, to put it that way. So make sure to check that out. It's Black Stack Brewing, brand new brewery smack dab in the middle of Minneapolis, St. Paul. Wide range of clean, flavorful brews and a massive bright tap and perfect for intimate settings, all the way to special events. That is Black Stack Brewing, 755 North Pryor, just north of Menards, off of University Avenue. So make sure to check in there. I've been drinking these growlers, which are their canned growlers, right? I thought it was kind of a fun nickname. So make sure to check those out. Make sure to check out Black Stack. So while we're waiting for Zach to get in here,
I think we're getting him in here shortly here.
Getting him in here shortly. Good news. Let's see here. Let's talk about Teddy Bridgewater while we're getting Zach in here, because I think that's a pretty simple topic and something that I don't think we need to go into too much discussion on, but something that needs to be said. So Bridgewater officially, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the show, if you weren't here or in here yet, Adam Schefter reported this morning that he is actually going to be activated next week, likely. And our guy Jordan Reed, I know that he's been talking. He's been kind of teasing you guys for the last couple of days. He'll be dropping an article with some Teddy Bridgewater quotes on VikingsTerritory.com. I believe tomorrow or early next week sometime. So make sure to check that out. It's going to be an awesome story. I'm really excited to read it myself, actually. So Bridgewater coming back now. This is going to be an interesting situation. We saw Case Keenum take all the first-team reps this week. Sam Bradford looked like he was very, very, very injured last week, and probably a candidate to replace Teddy Bridgewater on IR. That's kind of my prediction, my assumption. I guess, Drew, before it looks like we got Zach in here, we're going to bring him up in just a second here, but let's get your immediate thoughts on Teddy Bridgewater potentially returning next week and what that means for the Vikings moving forward.
Yeah, it's really an interesting dynamic how this whole quarterback thing has played out. We had Sam Bradford, who in his week 1 performance lit it up, probably the best game of his career, and some random knee injury that nobody even saw during the game. The Saints game goes down. And now you have Teddy Bridgewater, who's likely going to be back before Bradford. There's a lot into it that we know and probably can't share, but it's very interesting how it's all transpired. And at this point, Bridgewater returning is far more likely than I ever thought it would be. So that's good. But now I'm going to take this time to introduce Mr. Zach Jacobson, Cheesehead TV. He has been wandering in enemy territory all week this week, going on various Vikings, I guess, media platforms this week. So welcome, Zach.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't know how I'm still alive, and I'm not hurt. That's the best part. So everything's good.
Good to see you as always, Zach. Zach is a former colleague of both Drew and I, so we know him well. We're excited to work with you here today. We were just talking about Aaron Rodgers and then Aaron Jones as well. So I know you love to talk about Aaron Rodgers, so let's talk about him a little bit first here. Drew and I have been talking about his ability, his greatness all week long. And it probably sounds a little different coming from a Vikings fan than it does from a Packers fan. So what I want you to do is tell me a little bit about what makes Aaron Rodgers great to you and what has made him great for so long.
I think, it's something that he's been able to just do naturally over the years, but it's also something that's kind of like a big knock on him. It's his ability to extend plays. And sometimes, the Packers offense, they reap the benefit of that because he extends plays, he finds the open man, and the receivers are trained to come back to him when he rolls out of the pocket. They're trained to find spots in zone coverage where they can sit and Rodgers can find them. But sometimes too, he hangs on to the ball too long and he takes a sack and everything's just, the whole drive is stalled, everything. But just his ability to do that almost flawlessly, that and just being able to make throws off of any platform. Like, regardless of where his feet are, he could be off his back foot. He could be kind of facing one way and still use the trajectory of his arm to aim one way. It's insane. And just how smart he is before the snap in recognizing coverages, who's doing what. And it's crazy, just even for any NFL quarterback to just recognize, what's going on where before the snap and, kind of play out what's going to happen in your head before it does. That's, he does it almost better than anybody.
Before you got in here, we were breaking down this play here that you might be able to see on screen, the Martellus Bennett catch last week. I'm sure you've already checked this out quite a bit on film. Rodgers is able, like you said, to extend the football play, and basically this is a 7-second video clip. And what I was saying to Drew is you're not going to be able to hold coverage for 7 seconds
right.
when Rodgers is able to manipulate the pocket and basically just this throw itself is what's so special. I mean, like he throws an absolute laser, perfectly, critically accurate, pinpoint accuracy, and Martellus Bennett makes a great play because he's a big target with a great excellent body. Catch radius, all that, jazz for a tight end. So
right.
This is something that we're specifically very nervous about as Vikings fans this week, and that's that, ability to extend the play, especially with the Vikings playmakers. They crash the pocket very well, but Rodgers is someone that can extend the play despite, the athleticism the Vikings have on the edge for sure.
Yeah, the big part of that play, I mean, my colleague at Cheesehead TV, Ross Uglum, he posted the coach's film view of that, and it looked even crazier than it looks right here from the bird's eye view. But
right,
yeah, when you have a guy like Martellus Bennett that can get downfield, but he can also kind of use his body to position himself, kind of like a basketball player would, to box out guys. It's kind of like a Rob Gronkowski thing, and I'm sure Bennett probably picked up a few pointers from Gronkowski from his time in New England, but.
It's a good point.
Yeah, that was just a very, very good throw. And back to your point about Zimmer and those Vikings playmakers on the defense, kind of keeping him in the pocket. Zimmer's always been good at that, at kind of containing Rodgers and keeping him from getting out of the pocket. I think we're going to see more of that today. It kind of helps having David Bakhtiari back at left tackle, having him starting, which took me by surprise. I didn't think he was going to play. I thought maybe they'd see him until next week or maybe even through the bye, but having Bakhtiari there is definitely going to be able to help Rodgers kind of extend the play and do what he does. But still, even against the Zimmer coach defense, I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. Zach, what are you most scared of in this game? If you are scared, maybe you're not scared. Maybe the Vikings are just an easy win for you. But what are you most scared of in this game?
I'm scared of nothing. Really, just it goes back to that defense because I still think the Vikings have probably one of the best secondaries in football. And Xavier Rhodes is playing out of his freaking mind, so he's probably going to be the guy that mans down Jordy Nelson. Or if they're more intimidated by Devontae, I don't know how that's going to work. But still, Rodgers being able to find open guys and these receivers creating separation, I don't know if it's going to be as fluid as it was last week against the Cowboys defense or the week before against Chicago because they're the Bears. But still, it all just comes back to this defense because I've always been a huge fan of this Vikings defense, and I'm sure you guys have seen that. Anytime that the Vikings defense, a little bit, here and there, sprinkle a little bit of it. But yeah, they're a very good unit, and Zimmer is a big part of that.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about Aaron Jones and Ty Montgomery now, because you just saw you guys last week had Aaron Jones burst on the scene. You saw, the type of skill set that he brings to the table, his versatility in the backfield, and also you have a wide receiver playing running back as well who can run outstanding routes. I mean, that was one of the best things about Ty Montgomery coming out of Stanford is that he could run routes. So now you've got two explosive playmakers. It sounds like Montgomery's going to play today. I mean, he wasn't on the inactive list at least. So what do you foresee in terms of how those guys are used basically to elevate the play of Rodgers and elevate the players around him? How do you see both those running backs being used?
Well, Ty Montgomery, he definitely is going to play. I don't know if he's going to be wearing a protective vest, like a flak jacket underneath or not, but even if he does and he's apparently not going to be limited, I still think Aaron Jones is going to get a bulk of the carries because, it's hard to strip a rookie of his reps after what he did last week against Dallas. That was crazy in his first career start. But yeah, I think this is a classic Mike McCarthy smokescreen. I think he's trying to kind of make Ty Montgomery seem kind of more ahead of the curve than he is. I don't think he's going to get very much work. Occasionally in situational, he's probably going to be a situational running back today, but I don't think he kind of necessarily lost his job after last week. But he's definitely going to kind of give over a few snaps to Jones because, like I said, it's hard to take away snaps from Jones, and I know a lot of people won't like that, but. The best part about this is the Packers have probably the most diverse backfield I've seen them have in 10 years, since right around when Ryan Grant came on the scene.
Ryan Grant, there's a name for you.
Ryan Grant, Brandon Jackson, Deshaun Wynn, those were the days.
Yeah, Deshaun Wynn. Oh my goodness! Yep. Holy smokes!
Oh wait, you ready for this one? How do you pronounce his name? Vernon Morency?
How about Sam Cotton-Gatto? Fantasy football team right there.
He was the biggest tease at running back I've ever seen.
Matt Asiata is the biggest tease at running back ever.
Oh,
Matt Asiata. Okay, Zach, so let's talk a little bit about your defense now. Then we'll let you get out of here and go watch your football game. So a couple things. First of all, you got some important key defenders out on the inactive list. Secondary looks torn up. It's looked torn up last year as well. Probably going to see Ladarius Gunter today. It sounds like the secondary appears to be kind of hurting a little bit. So what do you see from this defense here? Aside from Mike Daniels and Clinton Dix, who are the playmakers here that we should be aware of and who should we, be alerted to ahead of the action here?
Well, I can only hope Ladarius Gunter suits up today. I can really only hope. He's our savior. Without Kevin King and Morgan Burnett, it kind of balances out because the Vikings, they're going to be without Stephon Diggs, who I think would need two guys to cover him. That's why I kind of think the penalties there offset a little bit. But,
I like thinking. That's good.
Yeah. I think you guys really have to watch out for Josh Jones because without Morgan Burnett coming down and playing in the box as an extra inside linebacker, they're going to move Kentrell Bryce to Burnett's traditional safety spot, and they're going to plug in the rookie Josh Jones, who played out of his mind against the Bengals 3 weeks back, but kind of fallen off the radar ever since. He's still been a very solid performer. I think he's going to do kind of what Micah Hyde used to do. Micah Hyde. I still can't pronounce his name, man.
Yeah.
He's going to kind of take over Micah Hyde's previous role and cover tight ends, and probably do so a lot more effectively. a lot faster. He's a lot stronger. He can kind of put hands on his guy right off the line. But he's definitely going to be a guy to watch today playing an inside linebacker because, this is a big opportunity for him. And ever since that Bengals game, he's kind of fallen off the radar a little bit. But we'll see if he can kind of bounce back today with a lot more reps than he's used to.
I'm very scared of Mike Daniels today because we have a left guard. Vikings have a left guard out. Starting left guard Nick Easton is out, which in fairness, he hasn't been the most productive.
But it's Jeremiah Searles that's going in instead.
Yes, BJ's favorite player, Jeremiah Searles, is replacing him at left guard. So if the Packers could scheme him up against Jeremiah Searles, he could have a fun day. And by fun, I mean really, really bad day for Vikings fans and followers. So I'm very scared of Mike Daniels, but I've been impressed with Blake Martinez too at linebacker. He's another guy to watch, especially in run support, where the Vikings are still kind of trying to find the groove with the McKinnon-Murray duo, but I think he could be a guy to watch too in the run game.
Blake Martinez, he was my favorite pick coming out of last year's draft, and it took a little while for him to kind of show up on the stat sheet a little bit or kind of create pressure on the quarterback. But I mean, he's been doing both of those things this year. He's made a huge jump, and he made the jump that you're expecting, pretty much, according to Mike McCarthy at least. Right. Those are his exact words. He did look
good on film last week, though. Drew and I were talking about Blake Martinez specifically on the most recent show because of the elevated play that we saw from him last week in kind of a dire situation with linebacker being an issue with injuries and that kind of stuff. Seems like he's a guy that's kind of stepped up quite a bit here. So before we let you go, Zach, here, why don't you tell our viewers here where they can find your work, what you're up to these days. Just do your showcase for me.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at Zach A. Jacobson, ZACHAJACOBSON. You can find me at Cheesehead TV. I'm pumping out work daily. That's what I do. And
love that.
Yeah, you guys follow me there. Yeah. And
all right.
Thank you guys for having me. As usual, you guys are the best.
We love having you, Zach.
We are the best.
I'm glad you know that, though, because we are the best. I just wanted to let you know that we got a comment in our video section here from a Lillian chick. I feel like I've seen this name before here. She says we had a cute guest on here, so apparently someone likes our guest of choice here. So thanks for joining us, Zach.
That's my girlfriend.
That's what I thought. Thanks for joining us, buddy, and we'll catch you soon.
All right.
All right, so like he just said, that's Zach Jacobson from Cheesehead TV. You can follow him on Twitter. I highly recommend it. He is my personal favorite Packers follow. So to get my updates and information on the Packers, keep up with our rivals, Zach is my guy because he brings a specific flavor to the table that I think he just showcased for himself here on video. So we'll get Austin Belial on here shortly to help us break down some of this Vikings film. But while we're getting him set up, I'll bring up some of this here. Let's start with the Jerick McKinnon run from last week because I think most of you guys have probably already seen this, so there's not a whole lot to this, to touch on. But I thought this was just a tremendous run by Jerick. Obviously, the 58-yarder game changer really set the tone for the Vikings in the second half, and this ultimately proved to be the difference in the game. So here's the run from the coaches' all-22 angle here. You're going to see McKinnon take a toss here to his right side, and he's basically going to make one cut here. You're going to see nice blocking upfield. See how the blocks is set up here at the second level? You got Leonard Floyd there. You see 94. He's basically sealed off. You've got Pat Elflein as well up there moving his way upfield. And Jerick's just going to explode through this hole and see Elflein crosses through there. It just gets in the way. You can see him literally just get in the way. And then McKinnon's going to the house. So outstanding play by Jerick McKinnon. Let's get our guy Austin Belial's take on here. Joining us now from VikingsTerritory.com as well. He's well known for his Belial's Burning Takes column. He's always on the VT Roundtable with us as well. Featured guest on the podcast frequently, Mr. Austin Belial here. How are you doing today, Austin?
What's up, guys? How's it going? Anyone dreading this game as much as I am?
You're dreading it?
I hate Packers Week. Packers Week's a joke.
Jeez. Well, please enlighten us as to why.
I don't know. It's just the games are competitive, which is normally a fun thing.
What's wrong with that?
Because I would love to see a game where the Vikings just take over and win it. Obviously, that's not going to happen this week. It's hard for me to say, Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback. and also reconcile the fact that I don't like watching him play just because he pisses me off. You know what I mean? Does anyone else have that? Like,
I don't know what you mean. You know me well enough to know how I feel about Aaron Rodgers. That's
you love Aaron Rodgers, but he's a good quarterback, right? But I hate seeing him play against the Vikings because there's always going to be, the phantom DPI. There's always going to be the phantom face mask.
We haven't talked about the free play Aaron Rodgers yet. That's one thing that we didn't talk about with Zach. And I know you love that, Austin, because as a coach, and you are a former football coach yourself, it has to drive you absolutely insane to see a 12-man on the field penalty turn into a 65-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
And that's something that Aaron Rodgers does better than anyone, like, probably in NFL history. That's like his thing. That's his MO. That's like what you're going to remember about Aaron Rodgers, the free play. He made the free play great again. That's what he did.
Yeah. But it's frustrating too. Like, cool. He's good at taking advantage of defenses, and he can spot when 12 guys are going to be on the field and use that against them. But it's also ticky-tacky because it's like I think Mike McCarthy is an overrated play-calling coach. I think it's sad that some of their offense has to come through plays like that. That's not – it's hard because that's not a recipe for, like, sustained success. But with Aaron Rodgers, I guess it is. I mean, he's going to make throws that guys can't make, and he's going to make plays that guys can't make. So the only place I see that happening is if Everson Griffin, decides to jump off sides, and that's really not an if, but more of a win because he's going to do it. It happens every game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think
Andy Carlson said that we should get that out of the way around the first snap. Just have very first snap of the game. Griffin just jump offside, and from there, let's get that out of the way, and then so he won't do it in a critical situation or something.
Hope it's a run play and really has no effect. I was gonna say I don't think it's gonna be Eve last year where Jordy Nelson went off. You all know how I feel about Jordy Nelson, but
let's get into that debate.
I should have had some Jordy Nelson's film here set up so you can explain why he is #washed to us. But what I do have here, and Austin, hopefully you can see this as well now on screen. This is the Harrison Smith interception from last week. I want to break down this play because Harrison Smith versus Aaron Rodgers is kind of like the individual matchup in my head right here. It's kind of a battle of the wits. Who can be smarter? Who can look up? Can Rodgers look off Harrison Smith in coverage? Is Harrison Smith going to be able to gamble successfully? He's a very big playmaker for the Vikings, obviously, but he's critical in this type of matchup where you've got a guy like Aaron Rodgers who could do so many different types of things. So this is the interception from last week, his second of the season. The reason why I wanted to bring this one up specifically is because this is an example of Trubisky rolling out, doing a similar thing as Rodgers would. He's not Aaron Rodgers, let me make this clear. But he's playing the same style of football as Aaron Rodgers here. He just doesn't make the critically accurate throw downfield, and Harrison Smith takes advantage of it. So let's take a look at it here first in just all the way through. You see Trubisky rolling out to the outside there, and basically Harrison Smith is just going to jump in front, and it's more, in my opinion, this is a poor decision as opposed to a poor throw, just because he's trying to do too much here. This is actually something Trubisky talked about in his post-game press conference. He's trying to fit it into a tight window there, and Harrison Smith just kind of gives him his welcome to the NFL moment, rookie, because this is just a great play by Harrison Smith jumping in front of coverage. Austin, what are you seeing here from Harrison Smith, and is this just kind of par for the course for this guy?
I think, personally, I think that Harrison Smith baits him here. I think he sees Trubisky roll out. And you can see as Trubisky's rolling out, Harrison Smith's got his eyes on the quarterback. He knows what he's trying to do. And so you can see, so right now he's running the out route. And then when Trubisky rolls out, he's going to convert it to like a seam route or up the field. And I think Harrison Smith intentionally trails it to give the impression to Trubisky that, hey, this window's here for you to fit it into. And it was never there. I think that was just a smart play by the vet. That is a throw I could see Aaron Rodgers making, not so much because he gets fooled by Harrison Smith, but because he thinks he's Aaron Rodgers and he can make every throw. So
he can make it.
And for what it's worth, I mean, we just went through the Martellus Bennett catch from last week, which is kind of on a similar rollout type play.
A similar play, yeah.
It's a very similar play. This is
longer, yeah.
It's literally the same style of offense. It's just a matter of one guy is arguably one of the greatest of all time, and one of them was having his NFL debut last week. So this is a mistake that I think, like Austin just said, I think this is a mistake that you could see Aaron Rodgers make. He doesn't make a lot of them, but when he does make them, they come on the road typically. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions at Lambeau Field, which they tell you on every single Fox broadcast. So this play this play right here is something that we're going to see, a lot of, because coverage is going to break down. It's a matter of, can the Vikings basically, as Harrison Smith did on this particular play, recover quickly and possibly make a big play in coverage, because this is the difference against Aaron Rodgers a lot of the times, if you're able to take advantage of the rare time when he does something like Trubisky did last week.
And I think it's going to be more critical too with Jaron Kearse starting today. And
is it Kearse?
It's Anthony Harris, I think.
Oh, it's Anthony Harris. I thought it was Kearse. Okay.
I think I'll double check. I'm pretty sure Courtney Cronin said it was going to be Anthony Harris. So
good. So I feel better about that, because Anthony Harris, you know how I feel about him in run defense, but
right.
As a deep safety, I think he gives the Vikings some stability. It's not so much, is he going to be in the right spot like Jaron Kearse, but he's going to be in the right spot. Now, can he make a play? Because he's shown in spot duty that he can, defend passes down the field and is usually in the right spot. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
so
I think more. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I thought you were done. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but we talked about earlier in the show, we were going to finish this up with talking a little bit about what Brett Coleman did on YouTube. I'm sure you're familiar, Austin.
Yeah.
This is a phenomenal 14-minute clip. I highly, highly recommend it. We'll drop the link on our Twitter page after this if you guys haven't already seen it. It's on my Twitter page as well.
I'll go drop it right now, actually, while you guys talk. I'll go find that link right now.
Okay, so Drew kind of prefaced this earlier, talking about the technique that Coleman talks about in the video. So once again, I want to alert you to one more time that we are kind of re-breaking down what Coleman already did. This is something that is his material. He did a phenomenal job doing it. All credit to him, but I think it's something that warrants more conversation, because this is something that he did in 14 minutes when really you could probably talk about this for 60, especially ahead of a Vikings matchup with the Packers. So the technique that Drew talked about earlier, the bear hug technique, right? Basically, instead of going up on the pads, like shooting up like this, you're going to go like this and scrunch them and basically hold them there. And it looks like a hold. So the title of the video, it seems clickbaity, but it's really not. It's the Packers technically are getting away with a hold by a lot of defensive coordinator standards on every single play, because they're quite literally holding a guy's in place and basically disallowing their lateral motion. That's a huge thing that the Vikings have somehow found a way to kind of get around to some degree, and have found an ability to have success. What are your thoughts on this, Austin? Just kind of technique to how the Vikings are defending it, and then we'll go through this Brian Robinson strip sack in a couple minutes here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's what some people would consider holding. I think it's holding. You outside the shoulder pads, holding onto a guy is holding, right? The only reason, and Brett talks about it in the video, is that the only reason it doesn't get called is because if you can control your guy and keep him square with you, they're never going to see it. They're never going to call holding, right? It's if he can break away and create the illusion of a hold that it's going to get called. I think the Vikings do a good job of like arm manipulation, right? So if your arms are out here, cupping your hand and grabbing your arm and throwing it off of you, or, anticipating when they're going to do the bear hug and getting it so they whiff, or using their momentum against them. So I think the Vikings understand how to combat that with speed to power, or, bull rushes and whatnot. Basically, you have to be stronger than the tackles. And I think there's a good shot today with Bakhtiari coming back from, a hamstring injury, for Everson to get some movement. I think for Hunter to get some movement too. So
the hamstring injury on an offensive lineman doesn't necessarily sound like as big of a deal as it actually is, because you think of hamstring injuries affecting skill players more than you would an offensive lineman, for example. But trying to set an anchor on a hamstring and lingering hamstring injury, good luck. It hurts. It does not feel good. I played offensive line in high school. I wasn't good at it, but I still had to fight through injuries sometimes, and it hurts a lot. I'm not a fan of that. And that's something that Bakhtiari is going to have to kind of be struggling with, and try to kind of mitigate the damage. And against a guy like Everson Griffin, who goes 150%, start to finish, that's the type of advantage that you'd like to see the Vikings take advantage of. It's obviously not the most, it's not the most conventional way of finding an advantage, but you take what you can get. And this guy's on the injury report. We know that you got to take advantage of that. So, Drew, what are you? I'll start. We'll run through this Robinson strip sack here. This is a play that you specifically wanted to talk about. So, I'll let you kind of man the wheel here. Straight up, just running through it in right time here. This is the play from last year, week 2. Robinson's going to get a strip sack and create a turnover for the Vikings on this bear hug technique.
Yeah, so one of the things Coleman described in the video was the way, you can beat this hug technique. So you'll see here, as long as I can play it, I'm trying to play it. But is that Balaga at right tackle? I think it's Balaga. Yes. But he initially waits, right? That's the part of the technique, is to wait for the defensive lineman to make the first move and then go in for the hug and get their shoulder pads up so they can't really perform any of their moves. Robinson waits to make the first move. He stays back and baits Balaga into making the first move. And that way, then he kind of rips through it and you said manipulating the arms. That's exactly what Robinson does there. So I think part of that is being patient and disciplined. And I've said that all week about Aaron Rodgers, but you have to be aggressively disciplined, as BJ like to put it. But here you see Robinson wait it only takes about a second, if that. And then you bait Balaga into making that first jab, and from there Robinson drills him. So it's a completely different ball game with these Packers tackles, because they wait for the defensive line to make that first move, and generally that works for some of these guys, but against the Packers it won't work, and Rodgers will beat you with it.
Yeah, this is a classic example of Brian Robinson using that veteran savvy, right? The finesse move type thing. Basically, this is an example of where Brian Robinson probably saw this on film. I'm sure the Vikings coaching staff has done a tremendous job, basically figuring out how to beat this new technique, which is apparently surging across the NFL. The Packers are not the only team that uses this new technique. And the Vikings have been able to figure out how to defend this basically, or I guess not defend this, to attack this by basically being using finesse techniques, watching on film what tendencies they have in given situations. And this is an example of Robinson seriously translating film to the field immediately. He knows that he can create leverage for himself by forcing Balaga to make the first move here. And this is an example of a player who might be declining in terms of ability at this stage of his career, but he still has that veteran mindset, that savvy. And sometimes if you can basically create enough leverage for yourself, and you're still, you have the capability to convert speed to power in a given situation. It doesn't matter how old you are if you're able to beat this technique with even better technique.
Yeah, that's going to be well, I think the discipline too is important. I keep mentioning that word, but it takes tremendous discipline for a defensive lineman for your entire career be taught to get knock the offensive lineman back and make the first move and get you kind of create that point of attack. And now you are told to instead wait and then make the offensive line do the first move, and from there you beat them. It's a completely different game, but I think Everson Griffin, Brian Robinson, all these guys are experienced enough to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works, because the Packers tackles, while they, again, you can say what you want about being a holding penalty or whatever it is, but they execute this very well. Bakhtiari and Balaga have, remember last year they all of a sudden were one of the top 2 or 3 offensive line units in the league. So it's really a battle of probably a top 3 to 5, if not the best pass rushing unit against one of the top pass protecting units, especially with those 2 tackles in Bakhtiari and Balaga.
Absolutely. All right, so that is about the end of the show here. We got some time here for questions, so if you guys, whether you're watching on YouTube, Shindig, whatever it is, if you have any final questions here for us to finally, take, knock those out real quick, we can do that. But other than that, we appreciate you guys, as always, joining us on the About the Labor pregame show. Like I said, every week we'll be here 1 hour before game time, breaking down film, talking about individual matchups, and a lot of the same stuff that we've been doing the last couple of weeks here. So, Austin, any final thoughts from you, and give me a score prediction as we're finishing up the show here?
I think I had a couple thoughts this morning. I think one, trying to bring Ty Montgomery back and splitting reps with Jones is going to be an issue for the Packers. I think you ride the hot hand, and that's probably going to hurt their run game. The Vikings are a better run defense than the Cowboys were, but I still think throwing the rhythm off like that is just a bad coaching decision. Two, I don't know if Rhodes is going to play the shadow game just because I don't know what the Vikings think of Jordy Nelson anymore, and that's a biased take. on
Really.
But I think you look at Devontae Adams as more of a threat, and you don't.
No, I agree. I don't think they'll shadow Rhodes. I think when you have two guys that are probably similar caliber, I think Nelson's better, but they're not that much different. I think putting Rhodes on it'd be the right side of the defense where he's most comfortable is probably the ideal move here. And then you just have Waynes try and deal with whoever, if it's Nelson or Adams on the other side. That's probably what I would do. But again, I'm not coaching for a reason. So.
No, I feel the same way. I don't think that you're going to see any of that mutiny that happened last year or non-mutiny that didn't happen. I don't know. But score prediction, I think it's going to be a tight game. I really look back at week 2 last year and think that this game falls somewhere in between there. You're obviously not going to have the passing outbreak that Sam Bradford did because Case Keenum's your quarterback and Stephon Diggs is out. But I could see this being a 14-17 game, 21-17 maybe. Yeah. I don't think the Vikings are going to score a lot of points.
If it's low scoring, it helps the Vikings. If it's high scoring, it probably helps the Packers.
Sure. I mean, the Vikings have held opponents to 17 points, 3 times this year? Something like that?
I get scared about Anthony Harris starting at safety. Yeah. That scares me because someone just asked that on Periscope, so I had to clarify that. But yeah, that scares me because I think you're pigeonholing Harrison Smith into the in the box role and kind of letting Harris be the center field guy, which is fine. But you'd like to use Harrison Smith's talents wherever he can be used. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so we got a couple questions here. One from Lucas Rietjens. Apologize, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, buddy. He said, "Who is the biggest inactive, Diggs or Sendejo?" Why don't you start us off here, Ross, on this question?
I don't think it's Diggs because I was thinking about this the other day. So on one hand, we can't say, "Oh, the Vikings have one of the deepest rosters in the league." And then when Diggs goes out, say, "Oh my God, we're screwed," right? You have to look at it like, okay, they have you can't have either or. So Diggs is out. Right. You still got Michael Floyd. You still got Laquan Treadwell, who has a lot to prove. Jarius Wright. I would say that those are 3 decent replacements. Sendejo is who he is. He's good for the Vikings. He fits. And against a quarterback like Rodgers, you worry more about the back end of your defense than I do the passing game of the Vikings. So it's got to be Sendejo for me.
Drew, over to you.
I'm going to go Sendejo just because of basically the reasons Austin said. The depth difference in the positions. I mean, people have asked about Michael Floyd and how he's going to perform today. I have him in my DraftKings lineup for a reason. I think the chemistry he and Case Keenum built in preseason and training camp, I think that will carry over here. That was kind of because Floyd was, on the second team, because he was suspended and whatnot. So I think that chemistry can carry over to this game, especially with Green Bay's corners not exactly healthy. So I like Floyd to have a big game. A big game. He'll have, I'm going to assume, probably 6 to 7 targets in this game. I think Anthony Harris is inexperienced, and while I do like his coverage ability, I think the run defense takes a hit without Sendejo.
Yeah, I'm with both of you guys here. I think you guys kind of broke this down as well as you can. The answer is simply Diggs may be the better overall player relative to his position, the more impactful player in the Vikings lineup. But Sendejo, the drop off from Sendejo to Harris as opposed to Diggs to Michael Floyd is considerably larger. So in my opinion, the Sendejo inactive, especially against a guy like Aaron Rodgers, which we've been talking about this entire show and basically all week, how he breaks down coverage so well. So it's important to have a guy in the back end like Sendejo, and him being out could really hurt the Vikings. So Drew, over to you for a final thoughts, bold prediction, final take, score prediction, all that jazz.
I have the Packers winning 27-23, and this is tough. It's obviously very difficult to predict. I think it's gonna be a very close game, but I think Aaron Rodgers is too good. That's really my only reasoning, and it might be poor analysis to you. It might be poor with whatever, but Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback talent and the most efficient passer of all time. So that's my reasoning, and I think it's going to be fair reasoning until he retires. Until he retires, that's going to be fair reasoning on my side.
For me, I've got the Packers winning as well. I'm sorry. I've got the Packers.
Right?
What's that?
Next week's the bye, right?
No,
we got one more.
Baltimore, and then to go to London to play the Browns.
Yeah,
and then
we got a couple more till the bye. Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool. Get this game out of the way. Let's go to the bye.
For me, like I said, I got the Packers winning 19-14 Packers. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, which, like someone said earlier, definitely benefits the Vikings. But this is a matter of, can the Vikings do more against that defense? And I'm just going to guess and say no. Just say that Aaron Rodgers is, he's the best player in this football game. As Drew said, best player in a football game tends to be a difference maker. So that's why I think, I think the Vikings have an opportunity to win this football game playing at home. I think that's, they're going to have a chance. But with key playmakers out, it's going to be close. I think this is going to be closer than people think, but I do think the Packers are going to win. For my bold prediction this week, I'm going to say Michael Floyd goes over 100 yards because I'm with you, Drew. I think he's a very talented player that's going to get a ton of targets tonight, in about 10 minutes here. So I fully expect to see a big day out of Michael Floyd. I think someone in our YouTube chat asked if this is going to be a coming out party for him. And I think that he already has had that coming out party before, but in terms of in Vikings colors, I think that this is the best opportunity that he might get all season long to really show out and, show us what he can do and earn his money. So I expect him to come out and do a nice job for the Vikings today. So that's it. Appreciate you guys joining us here, whether you're on Periscope, Shindig, YouTube, wherever you are. Always thank you guys for joining us. We will be back here live for the Vikings Territory Roundtable, not just Drew, myself, and Austin, but also the rest of the team, Brett, as well. So hope to see you guys there for that. As always, you can find the About the Labor podcast on iTunes, Stitcher. You guys know better than I do. YouTube, but you know where it's at.
It's your own show, man.
Yeah, so you can find that there, and then on Twitter at VikingsATL Pod. Thanks as always, and hit the subscribe button if you're on YouTube right now, and we'll be back later on. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll